Precious bean juice. Well, good day everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe. I'm recording this on December 25th, so in case you've already celebrated or you haven't celebrated yet, let me just say Merry Christmas once again. And the good news is that I've undone the mistake from my last episode where it seemed like I went all gray and old after downing a carton of eggnog. I don't know what I did, but you know what? I'm my old young spry self again, so I'm more than grateful for it. So, for today I thought, subscribe to the channel, end of story, since that came up. And moving along, something I've noticed too, and I think there's been a few people who pointed it out, is that on my channel, it's actually a rare occasion, or almost never, that I do any desserts. And the reason for that is because, for my style, I like to improvise with my ingredients and how I'm cooking some things. So if you're following a recipe for like a meal, and let's say you find out that you're missing an ingredient or you don't have enough, you're able to improvise and you're able to kind of play things around just to go by feel. In the case of baking, that's one of those things that if it says you need to use 1 cup of flour, you really need to use a cup of flour. So your measurements have to be precise, and you actually have to bake it, you have to follow the instructions to a T, because then otherwise you can mess it up. That being said, there are some recipes out there which are easy to do, even if you're not the best baker in the world. So for today I'm going to be doing what's basically an introductory recipe, a very tasty, warm, I'm running out of adjectives now, so let's just get to the chase. We're going to cut to the chase. Man, my vocabulary is taking a hit today. Today we're going to do a basic apple crisp. You need only a few items in your pantry, you obviously need apples, and you can do this rather quickly. So we're going to show you how to do this today. Alright, so first thing I need to do is get yourself a round dish. You can use something that's like a porcelain French white. You can even use other types of casseroles, just something that's deep enough for your apples. So, once again, this is a very simple recipe. To give you an idea of just how easy it is, if you remember your high school home economics classes, we always did a segment on cooking, along with sewing, where you taught yourself how to sew a button, but I digress there. When you're doing your cooking in the home ec class, you'll notice there's a few recipes that are pretty basic enough that they teach you. You learn how to make your own pizza, you learn how to make your own cookies, and you also make your own apple crisp. At least that's what I did when I was in 8th grade. So that's how simple it is. You're not going to be doing something fancy like a meringue pie. That takes a little bit of skill. So first thing you're going to need is about, let's say, a good 2 pounds of apples. I got myself 6 of them. I actually have 8, but you might only need 6 depending on your tastes. And you don't have to go too fancy with your apples. You just need to get something like Cortland, Empire, Macintosh apples. Because if you get the fancy ones, it's not going to make a difference. Because no one's even going to notice it when you're baking it. And some recipes are going to say you can keep them like this. I personally like to peel mine, just because that's how I always like to have it. Okay, I'm having a bit of trouble, but I have a plan B. Let's try this then instead. My plan B is going to be just taking my regular paring knife, slicing these up already in half, and then I'm going to peel them from the edge. Because my thought process is this. If I have an edge that's got some of the flesh with the peel here, then it should make it easier to peel off the skin. And it looks like my theory was correct. So again, this is optional depending on who you ask. But if you're like me, want to peel it, this is going to be the first step to do. And this might take a little while. You know what? I'll be right back, because peeling an apple is like peeling a potato, because it's like torture having to watch it, especially if you're no, I had to do a plan C instead. I have a better peeler I use for potatoes, and this was actually the perfect thing to use for apples, which I'm grateful for, because the other way would have taken too long. So, next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to cut these up into quarters after they're all peeled. Then, with your paring knife, you just cut around the core to get that out, because otherwise it's just going to be too much. It's not very soft. They also have these little devices you can use to cut off the core, but but I don't have that over here, so I'm just making do with what I got. Once it's decored, just take your knife, and then you make these little slits to make these small pieces, and then just lay it into your pan. There. Nice and simple like that. So you keep going with these until all of your apples are in the pan. And now we'll be right back. This is going to take a while. So yeah, I almost missed a key step here. I needed to grease up the pan, because otherwise these apples are just going to stick when they bake. What you do is you just take some either a bit of butter, or just take a regular cooking spray just to grease the bottom of it. Lay your apple back on top. Just do that again. Then we'll keep going with the rest of these apples. Actually, if I'm doing this correctly, then that means I'm actually going to have much less apples in here than what I would want to do as initially intended. So I'm going to be doing a transfer from this bowl into one of these casserole bowls, because this is actually going to work a lot better for my purposes. Yep, this is a very old school one. I think I got this from my something that my parents probably had, and they took it when I moved out of the house. Yeah, this will get the job done, probably even better. Yeah, you can actually see a bit of a difference now, because when you look, it actually covers a little less ground in here, which is exactly what I want. Because I want to keep making sure that my apples are sliced and have a deep amount of apples here. So keep going with this until all the apples are done, like I keep saying. There. Yeah, that was quite the ordeal, wasn't it? A lot of apples, a lot of slice, but you know what? Happy because I got it the way I wanted. This is around how much apples you want to have in your dish. So next thing you want to do is season up your apples. To do that, what I'm going to be using first is plain old cinnamon. I'm going to put like maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon in here. It could be close to 1 teaspoon, but that's fine. This is a case of you don't have to worry about too much, too much cinnamon. And then I'm gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice. The thing about lemon juice is that it preserves your apples pretty well, because one thing you're gonna notice when you're working with apples, the minute it's exposed to oxygen in the air, it's actually gonna start browning up. So when you use lemon juice, it actually prevents that too. Once you have your cinnamon and your lemon juice in, you're missing one more ingredient, plain old sugar. I'm gonna admit, in the years that I've lived here, I think this is the first time I've ever had to buy some sugar for myself. It's not something I really use very often. The most you would probably see are like cube sugar books that I had to serve for guests, or what I use for pizza dough. This I'm probably gonna put to use. So we want 2 tablespoons worth, sprinkle around. I'm sure this is one of those cases where you could get away with a little bit less. So I'm going to do like close to 1.5 tablespoons. This is not really complicated cooking where if you put less sugar, it's not going to turn out well. It's still going to be fine. And then what you do after that, well, make sure you don't drop your teaspoon everywhere. Just either take your fingers or your spoon and just mix everything up. I want to make sure this is all coated evenly. And then once that's all coated, you can move on to your next step, which is making your crumb that you're going to dump on top of your apples. There we are. Apples are all set to go. I'm just going to keep this aside now because, like I said, it's time for me to put together my crumb. But yeah, just for full disclosure, I'm working with a bit more flour here, so I figured time to get kind of festive when I want to go cook. I'm going to get this apron on right now. Yeah, a little gift that I got last year from a friend, and I want to put this to good use. It says, "I'm the buck." I guess I am a buck. I'm worth like maybe, I don't know, $20? Who knows? So, What you're gonna need then, if you're gonna be putting together your crumb, is another mixing bowl, just like so, and you can combine the rest of your ingredients in here. Here's what you First step you're gonna use are some old-fashioned oats, like you use for oatmeal, and you need about a good 3/4 cup worth. So 1 2/4 cup, then 3/4 cup. The way that I remember making this in school, we didn't actually use oats whatsoever, so this is almost like a brand new addition. Now, I can't even imagine without it. Step 2. You're gonna need now 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and then mix that in. 2 and 3. Nice and simple. After that, you'll need some light brown sugar. You can even use dark brown sugar, that's still going to be the same thing. What you'll have to do is put in 1 cup worth. Now, there is also an art to this too. Alright, almost there. Yeah, I'm not all out of sugar. It's because I already have some put aside in a container, and I just want to use this before I could dump up the bag. So when you put your brown sugar in, you just want to start packing it in nice and tight in here. It's basically like when you're tempering an espresso grains, so that you get maximum push, but you'll see why. Okay, we need to fill this up a little bit more. Luckily, I have a giant jar in here that I can put to use. And this will give me the remainder of the cup that I need. So just keep filling it in until you get to 1 cup, and then continue packing it down. And hopefully you can see this on camera. Don't worry people, I am going to clean this up. There we are. So then, you know you've done your job properly with the brown sugar. Normally in baking, when you put it in, it should come out like 1 big clump here. That's your sign you've done it properly. Just keep and I'll just keep the spoon over here. And then move on to the next step. Next step will be 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to mix into all this. And I'm going to do 1 nice heaping teaspoon. Beautiful. So I've got all my dry ingredients in here now. The next thing to do is have something to bind this all together. Despite what you may think, the brown sugar is not going to combine with the oats and the flour to make this all solid. You need something else. So your binding agent is actually going to be some butter. And just like all baking that I probably referenced in the past, you're going to want to use unsalted butter for this, never salted butter, because I don't think this is going to have a very good taste after it's all combined together. Now, in terms of your quantity, you need about a good 1/2 cup of butter. I'm going to get that set up. So 1/2 cup, I'm going to say something like this, maybe enough. Yeah, that's about 1/2 cup. But to make this easier for you, what you could do, I'm going to take this cutting board, is you're going to cut this up into small cubes. And then just throw them in to your batter. There. Butter's in. I'm going to get all the rest of it into the bowl. And then it's time to combine it all. So, if you have a well-equipped kitchen and you do a lot of baking, there's a pretty good chance you would already have your pastry knife, which actually doesn't look like a knife. It seems like more of a curve that goes down this way with a whole bunch of blades at the bottom. So what that would do is it would take your pieces of butter and then bind it to the salt, to the flour, to the sugar, the cinnamon, Problem is, I actually don't have one because I don't do enough baking, but there's alternatives you can do. You can use your hands, or you can basically combine it with 2 forks together like so. So the idea is that you want to bind the butter with the crumb, and then if you're doing this properly, what's going to happen is that you're going to be taking all this powdery mixture, and it'll start becoming a bit more crumbly as you're combining them. Just like so. So you'll notice a change in the texture now. It's going from powder to smaller clumps. Keep going until you got the majority of clumps in here. Well, this is going to be fun. Of course, I think I could use a little bit more butter. Yeah, this is one case where you can overestimate and you're not going to cause any issues with this. So just a little bit more. I'm starting to wonder if I had half a cup beforehand, and this is going to save my butt pretty prettily. Okay, this is probably as good as it's going to look right now, so it's all well and good. Now, it's supposed to look like this into a bit more clumps. You want it to kind of look like pea-sized crumbs in here once it's all binded together with the butter. This is not perfect, like it's not the entirely best consistency, because I need to have a pastry knife for this. But for the purpose of this video, it's still going to look just as good, and it's going to be fantastic. So once it's all combined, you would take your apples here, and then you would actually just pour it in. Take your mixture and just pour it right on top of the bowl. Like so. See if I can show this off more properly. There. So it's kind of looking like a bit more of a crumb. And then all you got to do is just pat this out to kind of even it up. Like this. Alright. Because you kind of want to have this covering all of your apples. Don't expose any apples. It's like exposing itself. Oh, that sounds kind of bad. And I got a little bit of butter left here. No problem. Just use my other fork to scrape this off. There. So this is all set to go. All I need to do is wait for my oven to preheat to 350 degrees, and then I could shove it in. All you got to do afterwards is bake for like 40 to 50 minutes. I usually do mine for 45 minutes because that gives you the right balance of juicy and crispy. So once it's out, you're good to go. And you just have to play the waiting game for this, and then we're fine. Come on. Yes. It's been a nice 45 minutes. Now, time to get the apple crisp out. See how it turned out. So this is how it will turn out if it turns out properly. It's like a nice bit of a dry on top, crusted, but it's also a little bit bubbly and sizzling. So this you would serve warm if you're going to be giving this as a dessert, or you could just reheat it in the microwave or in the oven afterwards in the small pieces. Something else you could do also is serve this up with a bit of ice cream on the side. And in fact, I think I have a little bit of black sesame ice cream still in my freezer from my last experiment with it. So just in case you don't remember that, then click on the top right corner there where you saw me taste it for the first time, over a glass of wine and a couple of candles also. Nice romantic evening, I have to say that, right? And now, I'll put this aside because I'm not actually going to be having it right now. I'm going to be doing it with some family later on, because I think I need to do something nice in exchange for pierogies I'm going to be having. Gotta love homemade pierogies, but you already know that. So everyone, thanks for watching another edition of the Wanayuki Cheese Cafe, Holiday Edition, version 2. Whatever, Electric Boogaloo. So if you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button below and give my video a thumbs up, and keep spreading my bad jokes all around. See you all later. Thought I saw my cat for a second. Hey, good buddy.